The call came through at 0200 hours. Static, broken, desperate. "This is Sergeant Maya Torres, 2nd Marine Raider Battalion, vehicle disabled, multiple injuries. K9, partner critical. Grid coordinates. The transmission died in a scream of wind. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Keller didn't hesitate. He was supposed to be on leave, tucked away in a remote cabin in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, trying to heal wounds that had nothing to do with bullets. But the moment he heard that voice, that specific tone of controlled terror that only comes from someone who knows they're running out of time. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you." Something inside him shifted. The operator went silent. The protector awakened. "Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story reminds you that heroes walk among us, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to believe in courage again." The Cascade Range in winter is not a landscape, it's a warning. 40 miles east of Seattle, beyond the last gas station and the final cell tower, the mountains rise like frozen sentinels guarding the edge of civilization. The forest is dense, ancient, and unforgiving. When the storms come, they come with a violence that erases roads, buries trails, and turns the world into a white void where sound itself freezes. Ryan's cabin sat at 7,500 feet, accessible only by a rough logging road that disappeared under snow from November through March. The structure was more fortress than home. Thick log walls reinforced with steel brackets, triple-pane ballistic glass windows, a diesel generator with enough fuel capacity to run for 6 months, solar panels angled to catch the weak winter sun, a root cellar stocked with freeze-dried rations, medical supplies, and enough ammunition to hold off a small army. He'd built it himself over 3 years, needing a place where the noise in his head could finally quiet down, where the screams from Kandahar and the blood from Ramadi could wash away in the profound silence of snow and stone. He was 41 years old, 16 years with SEAL Team 3, 237 combat operations, 4 Purple Hearts, 1 Navy Cross, and a medical discharge recommendation sitting on his kitchen table, unsigned, because he couldn't bring himself to admit that the war had followed him home. The only companion he'd allowed himself was Titan. Titan was a 95-pound Belgian Malinois, tan and black, with eyes like polished amber and a presence that commanded respect. He wasn't a pet. He was a weapon system, a tactical asset, and the only living thing Ryan trusted completely. They'd served together for 5 years. Titan had saved his life in a compound in Mosul, taking 2 rounds meant for Ryan's chest. The dog had survived, carrying the scars like badges of honor. Now they were both on leave, both trying to remember what peace felt like. The blizzard hit on a Tuesday night. Ryan had been splitting wood when the temperature dropped 20 degrees in 15 minutes. The sky turned the color of bruised steel, and the wind began to howl with a sound like grief. He'd brought Titan inside, stoked the wood stove, and settled in with a book he wasn't reading. That's when the radio crackled. Ryan kept a military-grade emergency frequency scanner running at all times. Old habits. The transmission was faint, broken by interference, but the voice was clear enough. Female. Young. Trained. Terrified. "This is Sergeant Maya Torres, 2nd Marine Raider Battalion. Vehicle disabled approximately 40 miles northeast of Snoqualmie Pass. Multiple injuries. K9 partner critical. Requesting immediate extraction. Grid coordinates. November Victor 3742. The signal dissolved into static. Ryan was already moving. He replayed the transmission, his mind automatically processing the data. Marine Raiders. That meant special operations, highly trained. If she was calling for help, the situation was catastrophic. 40 miles. Northeast put her deep in the backcountry, past the avalanche zones, in terrain that was barely mapped. He pulled up the topographic map on his ruggedized tablet. The coordinates placed her in a narrow valley called Devil's Throat, a boulder-strewn canyon that ran between 2 ridges. No roads, no cabins. No reason for anyone to be there unless they were running from something or had gotten catastrophically lost. The storm outside was already a full whiteout. Visibility was measured in feet, not miles. The temperature was dropping toward zero. Without shelter, she had hours at best. Ryan looked at Titan. The dog was already on his feet, tail stiff, ears forward. He knew. Dogs always knew. "We're going to work," Ryan said quietly. Titan's response was a single sharp bark of acknowledgement. Ryan moved with practiced efficiency. He stripped out of his civilian clothes and pulled on a complete cold-weather tactical kit. Moisture-wicking base layer, insulated mid-layer, Gore-Tex shell, pants and jacket in alpine white camouflage, composite toe boots rated to -40, balaclava, tactical gloves with trigger finger cutouts, ballistic goggles. He loaded his assault pack. Medical trauma kit with combat gauze, tourniquets, chest seals, and IV fluids. High-calorie emergency rations, water filtration system, thermal space blankets, chemical heat packs, flares, a compact bivvy shelter, climbing rope, carabiners, ice axe, weapons, his HK-416 rifle, suppressed with thermal optic, sidearm, Sig Sauer P 226, combat knife, flashbangs, smoke grenades. He strapped a K9 tactical vest on Titan, reflective panels, integrated harness points, pouches for medical supplies. The vest also had ballistic protection. If they were heading into a situation where a Marine Raider was down, there was a reason, and that reason was probably human. Ryan fired up his modified Polaris snowmobile. It was a beast, a military-spec Arctic Cat with a supercharged engine, reinforced suspension, and heated hand grips. He'd installed a cargo sled behind it, insulated and weatherproof, designed for casualty evacuation. The GPS coordinates were locked in. Devil's Throat was 18 miles away as the crow flies. In this weather, on this terrain, it would take 2 hours minimum. If he didn't break an axle or get buried in a drift or ride off a cliff he couldn't see. He mounted the snowmobile. Titan jumped into the custom compartment built into the front cowling, protected from the wind, but with a clear view forward. The dog's body heat would keep him warm. His nose would detect threats. Ryan's eyes couldn't see. Ryan twisted the throttle. The machine roared to life, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the falling snow. And then they plunged into the storm. The world became white noise and darkness. The headlights reflected off a million swirling snowflakes, creating a disorienting tunnel of light that revealed nothing. Ryan navigated by GPS and instinct, the snowmobile bucking and sliding over invisible terrain. The wind screamed, tearing at his jacket, trying to rip him off the machine. Titan's ears were flat against his head, but his eyes never left the path ahead. 20 minutes in, the GPS lost satellite signal. Ryan switched to dead reckoning, using the compass bearing and his internal map. The forest closed in around them, massive Douglas firs and hemlocks bent under the weight of snow. Branches reached out like skeletal hands, scraping against his helmet. The temperature continued to drop. His goggles fogged despite the anti-fog coating. He had to lift them periodically, letting the freezing air blast his face just to see. 40 minutes in, the terrain steepened. The snowmobile's engine whined as it fought for traction on the icy slope. Ryan had to dismount twice to winch the machine over obstacles, his muscles burning, his lungs aching from the thin, frigid air. Titan never made a sound. He just watched, waiting. An hour and 15 minutes in, Titan suddenly barked. 3 sharp, urgent sounds. Ryan killed the engine immediately. The silence was immense. The wind howled, but beneath it, faintly, he heard something else. Another bark. Distant, desperate. Ryan restarted the snowmobile and adjusted course, following the sound. 5 minutes later, Titan barked again, pointing with his nose. There. A dark shape against the white. Ryan pushed the snowmobile forward, and the scene resolved itself in the headlights. A Humvee, military spec, painted in forest camouflage that did nothing in the snow. It was on its side, wedged between 2 massive boulders. The front end was crumpled, the windshield was shattered. And from somewhere inside or near it, a dog was barking with the kind of frantic intensity that meant someone was dying. Ryan dismounted, pulling his rifle to low ready. Titan jumped down beside him, nose working, scanning for threats. The barking was coming from beneath the overturned vehicle. Ryan circled carefully, his tactical light cutting through the darkness. The Humvee had rolled. The impact had been violent. And there, partially pinned beneath the rear quarter panel, was a woman. She was wearing Marine Corps combat utilities, winter weight, torn and blood-soaked. Her face was pale, almost blue, streaked with frozen blood from a deep gash across her forehead. Her left leg was trapped beneath the vehicle's frame, and clutched against her chest, wrapped in her jacket, was a German Shepherd. The dog was smaller than Titan, maybe 70 pounds, with a dark sable coat, female, and she was the one barking, a desperate, protective sound that said, "Don't you dare touch her." Ryan holstered his rifle and knelt in the snow. "Sergeant Torres?" His voice was calm, authoritative, cutting through the chaos. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Ryan Keller, SEAL Team 3. I'm here to help." The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were dark brown, glazed with pain and hypothermia. Her lips moved, barely forming words. "My dog." "I've got her," Ryan said. "I've got both of you." The German Shepherd lunged at him, teeth bared. Titan stepped forward, positioning himself between Ryan and the other dog. He didn't growl. He didn't attack. He just stood there, radiating calm authority. The message was clear. "Stand down. Alpha is here." The female dog hesitated, whining, then lowered her head, still pressed against Maya's chest. Ryan assessed the situation with the cold precision of a combat medic. The Humvee weighed over 6,000 pounds. Maya's leg was trapped beneath approximately 800 pounds of that weight, caught between the frame and a boulder. The bone was likely fractured. The circulation was compromised. She had maybe 30 minutes before tissue death became permanent. Her core temperature was critically low, lips blue, skin mottled. Shivering had stopped, which meant she was in stage 3 hypothermia. That was the danger zone. The body was shutting down. The dog was in better shape, but not by much. Shallow breathing, glassy eyes, a visible wound on her right flank, frozen blood matting the fur. And the storm was getting worse. Ryan keyed his radio. "This is Keller. I have located Sergeant Torres and her K9. Immediate CASEVAC required. Multiple trauma. Hypothermia. Requesting helo extraction. Grid November Victor 3742. Static. Repeat. Requesting immediate medical evacuation." Nothing. He switched frequencies. Tried again. The storm was too thick. The mountains were blocking everything. They were alone. Ryan made the decision in 2 seconds. He couldn't move the Humvee. Not without equipment he didn't have. He couldn't wait for rescue that wasn't coming. He had to get Maya out from under that vehicle, stabilize her injuries, and get her to shelter before her body gave up. He looked at Titan. Guard. Titan immediately moved to Maya's head, positioning himself where he could watch both her and the other dog. His presence was enough. The German Shepherd stopped barking. Ryan moved to the rear of the Humvee. He pulled the ice axe from his pack and began digging, clearing snow and debris from around the vehicle's frame. His hands worked with brutal efficiency, scooping, chopping, creating space. He pulled out a length of climbing rope and a carabiner. He looped the rope around the Humvee's axle and secured it to a nearby boulder. Then he threaded a second rope through the pulley system, creating a mechanical advantage. He braced his feet and pulled. The rope groaned. The vehicle shifted, rising an inch, 2 inches. "Titan, pull!" The Malinois lunged forward, grabbing the rope in his jaws and throwing his weight backward. The combined force shifted the Humvee another 3 inches. "Hold," Ryan commanded. He wedged the ice axe under the frame, creating a fulcrum. Then he pulled again, muscles screaming, tendons straining. The vehicle lifted another inch. It was enough. Ryan dropped the rope and dove forward, grabbing Maya under her shoulders. He pulled hard, dragging her free just as the ice axe slipped and the Humvee crashed back down. The German shepherd scrambled after them, limping badly, but refusing to leave Maya's side. Ryan laid Maya on the ground and began his assessment. Her left leg was shattered below the knee, the bone visibly displaced beneath the skin. He pulled a SAM splint from his pack and immobilized the limb, working quickly, his hand steady despite the freezing air. He cut away her jacket and uniform top, checking for internal injuries. Bruising across her ribs, possible pneumothorax. He applied a pressure dressing to the head wound, then wrapped her in 2 thermal space blankets, creating a reflective cocoon. The German shepherd pressed against Maya's side, whining softly. Ryan ran his hands over the dog's body, feeling for injuries. The flank wound was deep, but not arterial. He applied combat gauze and wrapped it with medical tape. "You did good," he told the dog quietly. "You kept her. Alive. Now let me do my job." He turned to Titan. "Warm." Titan immediately lay down on Maya's other side, pressing his body against her. The dog's core temperature was higher than a human's. He was a living heat source. The German shepherd hesitated, then mimicked Titan's position, sandwiching Maya between 2 walls of fur and warmth. Ryan pulled out a chemical heat pack, cracked it to activate, and placed it against Maya's chest. Then he built a hasty shelter, using the cargo sled as a windbreak and his emergency bivvy as a roof. It wasn't much, but it cut the wind and trapped the heat. He checked her pulse. Weak, thready, but present. Her eyes opened again, barely focusing. "Nova," she whispered. "Your dog?" Ryan asked. A fractional nod. "She's here. She's safe. And so are you." Maya's lips moved, forming words he had to lean in to hear. Ambush, they wanted. The package. Ryan's expression hardened. "Who wanted what package, Sergeant?" But her eyes had already closed. Ryan sat back, his mind racing. Ambush, package, Marine Raider in the middle of nowhere. This wasn't an accident. This was an operation that had gone sideways. He scanned the wreckage of the Humvee more carefully. The damage wasn't consistent with a simple rollover. The passenger side door had bullet holes. The rear window was blown out. And there, half buried in the snow, was a tactical pack with USMC markings. Ryan pulled it free and opened it. Inside was a reinforced case, locked with a biometric scanner, military grade. High-value cargo. Whatever Maya had been transporting, someone had tried to kill her for it, and that meant they might come back to finish the job. Ryan looked at Titan and Nova, both still pressed against Maya's body, creating a cocoon of warmth and protection. 2 warriors, 2 species, 1 mission. He checked his rifle, press-checked the chamber, and settled into a defensive position at the edge of the shelter. The storm howled around them. The forest was dark and hostile. And somewhere out there, in the white void, danger was circling. But Ryan Keller had made a promise. He'd gotten her out, and he'd be damned if he let anyone take her now. The wind shifted, and Titan's ears pricked forward. A low growl rumbled in his chest. They were coming. The first sound was a snow machine engine, distant but growing closer. Then a second, maybe a third. Ryan's hand tightened on his rifle. He glanced at Maya, still unconscious between the 2 dogs. She was stable for now, but she couldn't be moved. Not yet. He had to hold this position. The engines grew louder. Headlights flickered through the trees, pale yellow beams slicing through the falling snow. 3 snowmobiles emerged from the forest, forming a loose semicircle around the crash site. Their riders dismounted slowly, weapons visible. They weren't search and rescue, they were hunters. The lead man was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing expensive cold-weather tactical gear that screamed private, military contractor. His face was obscured by a balaclava, but his movements were confident, practiced. He carried an AR-15 with a high-end thermal scope. The 2 men flanking him were similarly equipped, professional, dangerous. Well, the lead man called out, his voice amplified by the silence of the storm. "Looks like someone beat us to our missing Marine." Ryan stood slowly, rifle at low ready but not yet pointed. He kept his voice calm, controlled. "This is a medical emergency. You need to back off." The man laughed, a harsh sound that carried no humor. "Medical emergency. Right. That's what we're here for, too. See, Sergeant Torres has something that belongs to our employer. We're just here to collect it." "She's critically injured," Ryan said, his tone hardening. "She needs medical evacuation." "She needs to die quietly," the man corrected, "and anyone stupid enough to interfere." "Well, accidents happen in blizzards." He raised his rifle. Ryan moved. Years of training, hundreds of combat engagements, and the absolute certainty that he was not going to let these men hurt an unconscious woman compressed into a single fluid motion. He brought his HK-416 up and fired twice, center mass, before the contractor's finger even touched his trigger. The suppressed shots were barely louder than the wind. The man dropped. His two companions reacted instantly, diving for cover behind their snowmobiles. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness as they returned fire. Bullets snapped through the air, thudding into trees, kicking up sprays of snow. Ryan was already moving, using the terrain, the darkness, and the storm as cover. He flanked left, his movements economical, his shots precise. "Titan, engage!" The Malinois exploded from the shelter like a guided missile. He crossed the distance to the nearest contractor in seconds, a blur of tan and black. The man turned, trying to bring his weapon around, but Titan was faster. The dog hit him low, jaws clamping around his. Firing arm. The rifle fell. The man screamed. The third contractor panicked, spinning toward Titan. Ryan put 2 rounds through his shoulder, dropping him before he could fire. The clearing fell silent except for the wind and the groaning of the wounded. Ryan moved through the scene methodically, securing weapons, checking pulses. The lead contractor was dead. The other 2 were alive, but incapacitated. He zip-tied their hands and dragged them away from the shelter, leaving them in the snow. They'd survive long enough for authorities to collect them. Maybe. Titan returned to Ryan's side, panting, his eyes bright. No wounds, no hesitation. Just a warrior who had done his job. Ryan knelt and ran his hand over the dog's head. "Good boy. Outstanding work." He returned to the shelter. Nova had never left Maya's side, but her eyes were wide, alert, tracking every movement. She'd seen combat before. She knew what gunfire meant. Maya's eyes were open, barely, her gaze unfocused but aware. "What happened?" "We had visitors," Ryan said quietly. "They're not a problem anymore. The case. I have it. It's secure." Her hand reached out weakly, grabbing his sleeve. "Can't let them. Get it. Classified. Weapons intel." So that was it. She'd been transporting classified intelligence. Someone had leaked the operation. The ambush wasn't random. It was targeted. "How many more are coming?" Ryan asked. Maya's eyes closed. "Don't know. Hired contractors. Someone inside betrayed us." Ryan's jaw tightened. This wasn't over. The 3 men he'd just neutralized were an advance team. There would be more. He keyed his radio again, cycling through every emergency frequency he knew. Still, nothing but static. The storm was a total communications blackout. They were trapped. Maya couldn't be moved. Help wasn't coming, and more killers were on the way. Ryan looked at the 2 dogs, both alert, both ready. Titan met his gaze with absolute trust. Nova looked at him with something different: assessment, judgment, and then, slowly, acceptance. "All right," Ryan said quietly. "We hold here." He pulled the tactical case from the pack and secured it inside his own gear. Whatever was in there, it was worth killing for, which meant it was worth protecting. He checked his ammunition: 4 magazines for the rifle, 3 for the sidearm, flashbangs, smoke, enough to hold off a small team, but not an army. He repositioned the shelter, using the Humvee wreckage as additional cover. He set tripwires using fishing line and empty ration cans, low-tech but effective alarms. He placed chemical light sticks at strategic points to mark lanes of fire. Then he settled in to wait. The storm continued its assault, but inside the shelter, a fragile warmth held. Maya drifted in and out of consciousness. The two dogs never moved, their combined body heat keeping her core temperature stable. Hours passed. The darkness was absolute, broken only by Ryan's tactical light and the faint glow of the chemical sticks. And then, Titan's ears went up again. More engines, this time at least 5. Ryan moved to his firing position. Titan, Nova, guard her. Do not leave her side. Both dogs pressed closer to Maya, their bodies forming a living shield. The snowmobiles appeared like ghosts through the falling snow. But this time, they stopped farther back, out of rifle range. Smart. They'd learned from the first team's mistake. A voice boomed through a megaphone. You've got nowhere to go, friend. We've got 12 men. You've got, what, 1 rifle and a dog? Hand over the case and the woman, and we'll let you walk away. Ryan didn't respond. Words were wasted breath. The voice tried again. We don't want to kill you. This isn't personal. It's business. Ryan sighted through his thermal optic. He could see the heat signatures, spread out in a tactical formation. They were preparing to advance. Last chance, the voice shouted. Ryan's response was a single shot that destroyed the megaphone. The clearing erupted. Muzzle flashes lit up the forest like lightning. Rounds tore through the trees, punching into the Humvee, ripping through the shelter. Ryan returned fire with disciplined precision, picking his targets, conserving ammunition. He threw a flashbang into their advancing line. The detonation was blinding, the concussion stunning. Men stumbled, disoriented. Ryan dropped 2 more, but they kept coming. Smoke grenades filled the air with choking clouds. Thermal scopes cut through it, seeking targets. Ryan displaced, moving through the forest, using the terrain. He'd fought in worse, Fallujah, Ramadi, Mogadishu. But he'd never fought alone, except he wasn't alone. Through the smoke and chaos, he heard it a new sound. A bark, sharp and commanding, then another. Nova had left the shelter. Ryan's heart seized. No, stay with Maya. But the German shepherd wasn't running, she was fighting. She came out of the smoke like a demon, hitting the nearest contractor from behind. The man went down screaming, his rifle discharged into the air. Another contractor turned toward her, raising his weapon. Ryan dropped him before he could fire. Nova moved like lightning, targeting hands, arms, legs, disabling, not killing, but brutal in her efficiency. This wasn't a pet. This was a Marine Corps K-9, trained for war. And she'd chosen her side. Ryan heard a sound to his left. He spun. A contractor was almost on top of him, knife drawn. Ryan deflected the blade, countered with a knee to the gut, and finished with a strike to the throat. The man collapsed. The gunfire slowed, stopped. The forest fell silent again. Ryan counted bodies. 11 down. Where was the 12th? Titan barked a sharp, urgent warning. Ryan sprinted back toward the shelter. He crashed through the entrance just as a figure loomed over Maya, a pistol aimed at her head. "Don't!" Ryan shouted. The man turned. He was younger than the others, maybe late 20s, his face pale with fear and desperation. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaking. "They've got my family. I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Ryan said quietly. "Put the gun down." The man's hand trembled. His finger tightened on the trigger. Nova lunged. She hit him from the side, jaws locking around his wrist. The gun fired, the shot going wide. Ryan closed the distance, disarmed him, and restrained him with cable ties. The young man was crying now, broken. "They'll kill them. My wife, my daughter. We'll protect them," Ryan said, "but you don't get to kill her." He dragged the contractor outside and secured him with the others. The forest was a battlefield now, littered with incapacitated men and abandoned weapons. Ryan stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, his body aching. Titan returned to his side, limping slightly, a graze wound on his shoulder, nothing serious. Nova followed, her muzzle bloody but her eyes clear. Ryan knelt, checking both dogs, cleaning. Wounds, offering water. "You two just saved her life," he said quietly. "Both of you." Nova pressed her head against his hand. It was the first time she'd initiated contact. Trust, earned in blood and fire. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty. Ryan returned to Maya. Her eyes were open, lucid now, despite the pain. She'd heard everything. "Nova," she whispered. "She's a warrior," Ryan said, "just like you." Maya's hand moved weakly toward the dog. Nova nuzzled her palm, whining softly. "Thank you." Maya's voice was barely audible. Ryan keyed his radio again. This time, miraculously, a voice answered through the static. "This is Search and Rescue 6. We copy your transmission. Weather's breaking. Helo is inbound." ETA, 15 minutes. Ryan exhaled, the tension draining from his body. Copy. One critical patient. Multiple hostile casualties, requiring law enforcement response. Understood. Stay put. Help is on the way. He looked at Maya, at the two dogs flanking her, at the battlefield surrounding them. They'd held the line. Against impossible odds, in the worst conditions, they'd survived. Because warriors don't surrender. They don't quit. They fight until the job is done. The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the thinning storm. Searchlights pierced the darkness. And for the first time in 3 days, Ryan allowed himself to believe they were going to make it. The Black Hawk descended through the breaking storm like a metal angel, its rotor wash blasting snow into swirling clouds. The side door slid open, and a rescue team in mountain warfare gear fast roped down, medics carrying trauma kits, armed personnel securing the perimeter. The team leader approached Ryan, his expression grim as he took in the scene, the destroyed Humvee, the unconscious contractors zip-tied in the snow, the blood-stained ground. "Lieutenant Commander Keller?" he asked, his voice cutting through the noise. "That's me. Priority 1 patient is Sergeant Maya Torres. Marines. Hypothermia. Fractured femur. Possible. Internal injuries. K9 partner Nova has a flank wound, stable, but needs treatment." The medics moved immediately, assessing Maya with practiced efficiency. They started an IV, splinted her leg properly, and loaded her onto a basket stretcher. Nova tried to follow, but Ryan knelt beside her, his hand firm on her collar. "Easy. They're helping her. You did your job. Let them do theirs." The dog whined, her eyes locked on Maya's unconscious form. "She'll be okay," Ryan said quietly. "Because of you." One of the medics approached. "We need to transport the K9 too. That wound needs proper treatment." Ryan nodded. "Titan, stay." The Malinois sat immediately, watching as the medic gently coaxed Nova toward the helicopter. The German Shepherd resisted until Maya was loaded inside, then finally allowed herself to be lifted in after her handler. The team leader turned to Ryan. "What about you, Commander?" "You hurt?" "I'm operational." "And these?" He gestured to the restrained contractors. "Hostile forces. Attempted murder of a military courier. There are at least 3 dead, 8 wounded. One of them claims his family was taken hostage to force his cooperation. He'll need protection." The team leader's expression darkened. "FBI's been notified. They're sending a tactical team. This is bigger than a rescue now." "I know." Sergeant Torres was transporting classified intelligence. Someone inside leaked her route. This was a coordinated ambush. "Do you still have the package?" Ryan patted his pack. "Secured." "Then you're coming with us. Command wants you debriefed immediately." Within minutes, the scene was swarming with personnel, additional helicopters, search teams, military police. Ryan watched as they loaded the contractors, documented the battlefield, and secured the Humvee. He climbed into the Black Hawk last, Titan at his side. The dog settled at his feet, finally allowing himself to rest. Ryan's hand rested on the Malinois' head as the helicopter lifted, rising, through the last tendrils of storm, into clear, star-filled sky. Across the cabin, Maya was bundled in thermal blankets, an oxygen mask over her face. Nova lay beside her stretcher, the medic having given up trying to separate them. The dog's head rested on Maya's arm, her eyes closed but her body still tense, guarding even in exhaustion. Ryan met the gaze of the lead medic. Prognosis? She'll live. Another hour out there, though. He shook his head. Ryan looked out the window at the vast darkness of the mountains below. 1 hour. The margin between life and death, measured in decisions made in seconds. The flight to Joint Base Lewis McChord took 30 minutes. They landed on the hospital pad, where a full trauma team was waiting. Maya was rushed inside. Nova pulled away despite her desperate resistance. A veterinary team took the German Shepherd to their clinic, promising she'd receive the same level of care. Ryan was escorted to a debriefing room, stark, windowless, occupied by 2 NCIS agents and a Marine Corps colonel he didn't recognize. For 3 hours he recounted everything: the distress call, the rescue, the ambush, the firefight. He handed over the tactical case, watching as they scanned it with a biometric reader and accessed the contents. The colonel's face went white. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "This is, if this had fallen into the wrong hands." "What is it?" Ryan asked. The colonel looked at him. "Above your clearance, Commander. Let's just say Sergeant Torres wasn't transporting intelligence. She was transporting the identities and locations of every deep-cover operative we have in 3 hostile nations. If this list had been sold, how many would die?" Ryan asked. "Hundreds, maybe thousands." The room fell silent. One of the NCIS agents leaned forward. "We've already started investigating the leak. Preliminary evidence points to a civilian contractor who had access to the transport schedule. He's in custody. There are likely others." Ryan nodded. "The young contractor I captured said his family was taken. If that's true, we're on it." The agent interrupted. "FBI's executing raids now. We'll find them." The debriefing concluded at dawn. Ryan was exhausted, his body aching, his mind numb. But before he could leave, the colonel stopped him. "Commander Keller, what you did out there, you saved that Marine's life. You saved this operation. And you probably saved a lot of operators who don't even know how close they came." Ryan shrugged. "I did my job. Your job was to be on leave. You were under no obligation to respond." "She called for help," Ryan said simply. "That's all the obligation I needed." The colonel extended his hand. "The Corps doesn't forget its debts, Commander. Neither do I." Ryan shook his hand and left, Titan padding beside him. They walked through the hospital corridors, following signs to the veterinary wing. He found Nova's room easily. The sound of anxious whining guided him. The German Shepherd was in a recovery kennel, her flank bandaged, an IV line running to her leg. When she saw Ryan, her tail began to wag weakly. The attending vet approached. "You're the SEAL who brought her in?" "Yeah. How is she?" "The wound was deep, but clean. No infection. We've got her on antibiotics and pain management. She should make a full recovery." The vet hesitated. "She won't eat, won't rest. She just keeps watching the door." Ryan knelt beside the kennel. "She's waiting for her handler. Sergeant Torres is in the ICU. Stable, but she won't be released for days." Ryan looked at Nova's anxious eyes. "Can I take her to see Maya, even for a few minutes?" The vet considered. "It's against protocol. Doctor, this dog held the line beside a critically injured Marine for hours in sub-zero temperatures. She fought off armed attackers to protect her. The least we can do is let her know Maya's alive." The vet's expression softened. 10 minutes, no more." They transported Nova on a Manrand, wheeled gurney, too weak to walk. Ryan and Titan accompanied her to the ICU. The nurses protested, but one call to the colonel cleared it. Maya was in a private room, monitors beeping steadily, her face pale but peaceful. When Nova was wheeled close enough to see her, the dog let out a sound. Ryan had never heard a cry of pure relief. Maya's eyes opened. "Nova." The nurses helped position the gurney alongside the bed. Maya's hand reached out, fingers tangling in Nova's fur. The dog pressed her face against Maya's palm, whining softly. "Good girl," Maya whispered. "My brave girl." Nova's tail thumped once against the gurney. Ryan stood back, watching. Titan sat beside him, his gaze on the two warriors reunited. For a moment, everything else fell away, the violence, the cold, the fear. Only this remained. The bond between Handler and K9, forged in fire, unbreakable. A nurse touched Ryan's arm. "Time's up." He nodded. "Nova, release." The command was gentle, but the dog understood. She pulled back reluctantly, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "She's okay," Ryan told Nova quietly. "You kept her alive. Now let her heal." They took Nova back to the vet clinic. Ryan returned to the visitor's wing, where he finally collapsed into a chair, exhaustion crashing over him like a wave. Titan lay at his feet, the Malinois' body finally relaxing into sleep. Ryan closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind kept replaying the moments Maya's voice on the radio, the storm, the gunfire, Nova's desperate charge, the split second when he'd almost been too late. He'd spent 16 years at war. He'd lost count of the lives he'd taken, the missions completed, the objectives achieved. But tonight, in a frozen forest, fighting to protect one wounded Marine and a loyal dog, he'd remembered something he'd almost forgotten. This was why he'd become a SEAL. Not for medals or glory or even patriotism, but for the ability to answer when someone called for help, the strength to stand between the innocent and the darkness, the capacity to be someone's last hope. A week later, the sun broke through the clouds over Joint Base Lewis McChord, turning the snow-covered landscape into fields of diamonds. Ryan stood in the hospital courtyard, hands in his jacket pockets, watching as a wheelchair was pushed through the automatic doors. Maya Torres sat upright, her left leg in a full cast, her face still bruised, but her eyes clear and bright. Nova walked beside the wheelchair, her tail wagging, a fresh bandage visible beneath her service vest. Behind them came the hospital staff, a Marine Corps honor guard, and a small crowd of personnel who'd heard the story and wanted to witness the reunion. Ryan stepped forward, Titan at his heel. Maya looked up at him, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Words felt inadequate for what had passed between them in that frozen forest. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "They told me what you did, all of it. I had help," Ryan said, nodding toward Titan and Nova. "You saved my life, Commander. You saved Nova's life. And you saved an operation I didn't even know was that critical." Ryan shrugged. "You would have done the same." "Maybe. But I wouldn't have succeeded." She reached into her jacket and pulled out something small, a challenge coin, worn and scratched. "This was my grandfather's. He was a Marine Raider in World War II. He gave it to me when I graduated from the School of Infantry. He said to give it to someone who embodied what the Corps stands for. Someone who puts others before themselves, no matter the cost." She held it out. "I think he'd want you to have it." Ryan took the coin, feeling its weight. On one side was the Marine Raider insignia. On the other, a simple inscription, "First to fight, last to quit." "I'll carry it with honor," he said quietly. Maya smiled. Then her expression shifted, becoming serious. "I heard they're offering you a promotion, a teaching position at the Naval Special Warfare Center." Ryan nodded. "They want me to train the next generation. Show them what it means to operate in extreme conditions. Will you take it?" He looked at Titan, then at Nova, then back at Maya. "Yeah, I think I will. Someone's got to make sure the next group of operators knows how to save lives, not just take them." "Good." Maya reached down, scratching Nova behind the ears. "Because this girl's going to need a new assignment too. The doctors say I won't be cleared for field ops for at least a year. Nova can't sit idle that long. She'll go crazy." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you take her with you. Let her work with Titan. Let her train the new K9 teams. Show them what a real warrior looks like." Ryan looked at Nova. The German shepherd met his gaze with those intelligent brown eyes, and he saw something there, recognition, trust, and the quiet strength that had kept Maya alive when everything else said she should die. "You sure?" he asked Maya. "She saved my life by trusting you," Maya said. "Now I'm trusting you with hers." Ryan knelt, bringing himself to Nova's level. He extended his hand. The dog sniffed it once, then pressed her head into his palm. "All right," Ryan said. "Nova, with me." The German shepherd stood, moved to his left side, and sat. The transition was seamless, professional. A warrior, accepting a new commanding officer. Titan approached, touching his nose to Nova's. The two dogs regarded each other for a moment not as strangers, but as comrades who'd bled together. Maya watched from her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face. "Take care of each other," she whispered. The Marine Corps Honor Guard raised their hands in salute. The crowd erupted in applause. And as Ryan walked away from the hospital, two K9 warriors at his sides, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. 6 months later, the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California, gleamed under the Southern California sun. The training compound was brutal obstacle courses, kill houses, ocean swims, and endless desert runs designed to break the weak and forge the strong. Ryan stood at the edge of the beach, watching a new class of SEAL candidates struggle through surf torture. Titan and Nova sat beside him, both dogs alert, both scanning the trainees with professional assessment. "Commander Keller?" a young voice called out. Ryan turned. A fresh-faced ensign approached, looking nervous. "Sir, the Admiral wants to see you." In the Admiral's office, Ryan found himself facing not just his commanding officer, but Maya Torres. She was standing now, leaning on a cane, but standing, and she was back in uniform. "Sergeant Torres," Ryan said, surprised. "I thought you weren't cleared." "Medical board cleared me last week," she said with a grin. "Limited duty. No field ops. But I've been assigned as the new K9 liaison for West Coast training operations. Which means, the Admiral said, you two will be working together. Commander Keller handles the human operators. Sergeant Torres handles the K9 program. Together, you'll create the most effective SEAL K9 teams this country has ever seen." Ryan looked at Maya. She looked back, her expression one of determination and shared understanding. "Think you can handle working with a Marine commander?" she asked. Ryan smiled. "Only if she can handle working with a SEAL." The Admiral handed them each a folder. "Your first class starts in 2 weeks. 20 operators, 20 K9S. By the time you're done with them, they'll be ready for anything the world throws at them." As they left the office, Nova immediately went to Maya, pressing against her leg. Maya's hand dropped to the dog's head, the reunion effortless and complete. Titan looked up at Ryan, his expression almost questioning. "Yeah, buddy," Ryan said quietly. "We found our mission." The training program they built became legendary. Ryan taught the human operators how to read terrain, survive impossible conditions, and make decisions when every option looked like death. Maya taught the K9S and their handlers how to communicate without words, how to trust absolutely, and how to function as a single unit. Together, they created something unprecedented. Teams that didn't just work together, but lived together, fought together, and would die for each other without hesitation. Years later, on a quiet evening in Coronado, Ryan stood on the beach with Maya. The sun was setting, painting the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. Titan and Nova were playing in the surf, two warriors finally at peace. "You ever think about that night?" Maya asked. "In the forest?" "Every day," Ryan admitted. "Me too." She was quiet for a moment. "I was so close to giving up, you know. The cold, the pain, the certainty that no one would find us in time. But Nova wouldn't let me quit. She kept pressing against me, kept barking, kept fighting. And then you came. I just answered the call." "No." Maya turned to face him. "You did more than that. You showed me what real courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win." Ryan watched the two dogs, now sitting side by side, watching the sunset. "They taught us that, both of them. They don't understand fear or doubt. They just understand loyalty and love." Maya nodded. "My grandfather used to say that humans invented war, but dogs invented brotherhood. I never really understood what he meant until that night." They stood in comfortable silence as darkness fell and the stars emerged. Behind them, the lights of the training compound blazed, where the next generation of warriors was learning what it meant to serve. Ryan's phone buzzed. A message from the Admiral. New mission brief. 0600 tomorrow. High-value target. Your team's being activated. He showed it to Maya. She smiled. Guess we're not retired yet. Guess not. They walked back toward the compound, too. Warriors who'd found each other in the worst moment and built something lasting from it. Behind them, Titan and Nova followed, two K9s who'd proven that sometimes the greatest courage comes on four legs. And as they disappeared into the night, the ocean whispered its eternal song, a reminder that some bonds are forged in fire and ice, tested in blood and darkness, and emerge unbreakable. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear fur. Sometimes they come when you've lost all hope, breaking through storms and bullets and impossible odds, because somewhere in the darkness someone called for help. And they answered. The years that followed transformed both of them in ways neither had expected. Ryan discovered that teaching was harder than combat, not physically, but emotionally. Every young SEAL candidate who showed up broken, haunted, carrying demons from deployments reminded him of himself. And every time he helped one find their way back, he felt a piece of his own. Darkness lift. Maya became more than a K9 liaison. She became an advocate, testifying before a Congress about the bonds between handlers and their dogs, fighting for legislation that ensured retired military working dogs received proper care, that they went home with their handlers instead of being euthanized or abandoned. Together, they built something that went beyond a training program. They built a family. The compound in Coronado grew. What started as a standard K9 training facility expanded into a full rehabilitation and retraining center. They didn't just work with active-duty military dogs anymore. They began accepting retired K9s, dogs with PTSD, dogs whose handlers had died and who needed new purpose. One afternoon, 3 years after that frozen night in the Cascades, a truck pulled up to the compound gates. The driver was a Marine corporal, young, with eyes that had seen too much. In the back of his truck was a kennel, and inside that kennel was a German shepherd who wouldn't stop shaking. Ryan walked out to meet them. "Can I help you?" The corporal's voice was tight with emotion. "Sir, this is Rex. He was my battle buddy in Helmand Province. Saved my life 4 times. But when we came home, the Corps said they didn't have space for him in their program. They were going to. He couldn't finish the sentence. I heard about what you do here. I heard you take care of the ones nobody else wants." Ryan looked into the kennel. Rex was pressed against the back wall, his body trembling, his eyes wild with fear and trauma. This wasn't just a retired dog. This was a warrior, suffering from the same invisible wounds that had nearly destroyed Ryan. "Bring him in," Ryan said quietly. The corporal's eyes filled with tears. "You'll take him?" "Son, every dog that makes it through our gates gets the same promise. They're home now, they're safe. And they'll never be abandoned again." Maya appeared beside him, Nova at her heel. She saw Rex and her expression softened with understanding. "Titan," Nova introduced. Both dogs approached the kennel slowly, not as threats but as greeters. They sat outside the wire door, patient, calm, radiating the quiet confidence that came from dogs who knew their place in the world. Rex stopped shaking, his eyes focused on the 2 dogs outside, and slowly, tentatively, he moved forward. "That's it," Maya said softly. "They've got you now." By sunset, Rex was out of the kennel, walking between Titan and Nova like he'd always been part of their pack. The corporal stayed to watch, tears streaming down his face as his dog, the warrior who'd saved his life, began to heal. "Thank you," the Marine whispered. "I didn't know where else to go." Ryan put a hand on his shoulder. "You came to the right place." The corporal left that evening, but he came back every weekend. And he wasn't alone. Word spread through the military community. Soon, handlers from all branches were bringing their retired K9s to Coronado. Dogs with shrapnel, scars. Dogs who couldn't sleep without nightmares. Dogs whose handlers had died, and who'd been passed from kennel to kennel, never understanding why their person never came back. They all found sanctuary there. Maya created a program she called Second Deployment. Retired K-9s who successfully rehabilitated were paired with veterans struggling with PTSD. The bond between warrior and dog created healing that no medication or therapy could match. The dogs gave the veterans purpose. The veterans gave the dogs the love they desperately needed. It was during one of these placement ceremonies that Ryan met David Chen, a former Army Ranger who'd lost both legs and 3 members of his squad in an IED blast in Afghanistan. David had tried everything: therapy, medication, support groups. Nothing worked. He'd been on the edge, planning his exit, when someone told him about the program. "I don't need charity," David said, his voice hard, his eyes empty. "And I don't need a pity dog." Ryan crouched down to David's eye level. "The dog I'm about to introduce you to was buried in rubble for 16 hours after a building collapse in Mosul. His handler died protecting him. He spent 8 months refusing to work with anyone else. He tried to bite every trainer who came near him. He'd given up," Ryan signaled, and Maya brought out a Belgian Malinois, scarred and limping, but moving with quiet dignity. "His name is Atlas. And he doesn't need charity either. He needs a warrior who understands what it's like to lose everything and still have to find a reason to stand up. You two aren't here to save each other. You're here to fight together, one more mission. What do you say, Ranger?" David stared at the dog. Atlas stared back, and something passed between them: recognition, understanding, the shared knowledge of survival against impossible odds. David's hand reached out. Atlas stepped forward. Their connection was instant, electric, undeniable. 6 months later, David ran his first 5K using prosthetic blades, Atlas running beside him. A year after that, he completed a marathon. 2 years later, he opened his own adaptive sports training facility for wounded veterans. "Atlas saved my life," David told Ryan at the facility's grand opening. "Not by pulling me out of a firefight, but by giving me a reason to fight one more day." Ryan looked at the dog, now gray-muzzled, but still alert, still serving. "He's doing what he was born to do, same as you." These were the moments that made everything worth it. Not the medals or the commendations or the recognition, but watching broken warriors, human and canine, find wholeness in each other. One evening, as Ryan and Maya walked the compound after the trainees had been dismissed, they stopped at a memorial wall they'd built. It held photos of every K9 who'd served and fallen. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of stories, hundreds of heroes most people would never know existed. "Do you ever wonder if we're making a difference?" Maya asked quietly. Ryan was silent for a moment, watching Titan and Nova play with the younger dogs in the training yard. "I used to think my job was to be the hardest, the fastest, the deadliest. I measured success in missions completed and enemies eliminated. But now," he gestured toward the compound, where former warriors were finding peace, where broken dogs were becoming whole, where bonds were forming that would last lifetimes. "Now I know this is the mission that matters most. Not the ones that make headlines, but the ones that save souls." Maya nodded, her hand unconsciously moving to the scar on her leg, a permanent reminder of that frozen night. "You know what I remember most about that night in the forest? Not the pain or the fear, or even the gunfire. I remember Nova refusing to leave me. I remember Titan standing guard. I remember you appearing out of a blizzard because someone you'd never met called for help." She turned to face him. "That's what we're teaching them. Not just tactics or commands or how to survive hostile conditions. We're teaching them that some things are worth more than survival. That loyalty isn't conditional. That love is a force multiplier that no amount of firepower can match." Ryan smiled. "Since when did you get so philosophical, Sergeant?" "Since a stubborn SEAL dragged me out from under a Humvee and reminded me why I wear this uniform." The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. The sound of waves mixed with the distant barking of dogs and the laughter of trainees finishing their runs. It was, Ryan thought, the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. That night, he sat in his quarters, a simple room with a bed, a desk, and walls covered in photos. Pictures of his old SEAL team, most of whom had scattered to other assignments or civilian life. Pictures of the dogs who'd come through the program. And there, in a frame on his desk, a photo from that rescue mission. It had been taken by one of the helicopter crew. Ryan hadn't even known it existed until Maya gave it to him on the anniversary of that night. It showed him kneeling in the snow beside the shelter, Titan on one side, Nova on the other, both dogs pressed against Maya's unconscious form. His face was visible in profile, exhausted, blood-streaked, but absolutely determined. Maya had written on the back, "The moment I knew I was going to live." Not because of the helicopter or the medics, but because this warrior refused to let me die. MT. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." Maya entered, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She handed him one and sat on the edge of his desk. "Can't sleep?" Thinking. About? About how strange life is. 6 years ago, I was ready to disappear into those mountains and never come back. I was done. Finished. The war had taken everything from me, and I didn't have anything left to give. What changed? He looked at the photo. A Marine sergeant called for help in a blizzard, and I remembered that sometimes the most important mission isn't the one you choose. It's the one that chooses you. Maya sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "You know what Admiral Sykes told me last week?" He said, "Our program has the lowest PTSD recurrence rate of any rehabilitation program in the military. The veteran K-9 partnerships we create have a 93% success rate." 93%, Ryan. That means we're not just saving dogs, we're saving the people who serve them. "And the dogs save us right back," Ryan added. Exactly. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 warriors who'd found peace not in the absence of war, but in the presence of purpose. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. A black SUV with government plates pulled up to the compound, and out stepped a woman in her 60s, silver-haired, wearing a tailored suit that screamed authority. She was accompanied by 2 aides and a Marine Corps. General Ryan recognized from news broadcasts. Maya met them at the gate. "Ma'am, can we help you?" The woman extended her hand. "Senator Patricia Morrison, Senate Armed Services Committee. This is General Graves, Commandant of the Marine Corps. We'd like a tour of your facility, if you have time." Ryan appeared beside Maya. "Senator, General, this is unexpected. I've been hearing remarkable things about this program," the senator said. "Stories about wounded warriors finding purpose. About retired K-9s getting second chances. About a SEAL and a Marine who built something unprecedented. I wanted to see it for myself." They walked the compound for 2 hours. The senator watched training sessions, spoke with veterans paired with their K-9 partners, listened to testimony from handlers whose lives had been transformed. She met Rex, who'd gone from traumatized and violent to a certified therapy dog working with children. She met Atlas and David Chen, whose story had inspired a documentary, and she met Titan and Nova, the 2 dogs who'd started it all. Both dogs were older now, gray around their muzzles, moving with the careful deliberation of warriors who'd earned their rest. But their eyes were still sharp, still alert, still watching over their domain. Senator Morrison knelt before them, and both dogs allowed her to touch their heads. A sign of acceptance Ryan had rarely seen them give to strangers. "These 2, she said quietly. "They're why we're here, aren't they?" "Yes, ma'am," Ryan confirmed. "They showed us what's possible when loyalty and courage meet purpose." The senator stood. "Commander Keller, Sergeant Torres, what you've built here isn't just a training facility. It's a model for how we should be treating all our military working dogs and the warriors who serve beside them. Which is why I'm introducing legislation next month to create a national network of facilities like this one. And I want you 2 to lead the program." Ryan and Maya exchanged glances. "Senator," Maya said carefully, "we appreciate the recognition, but our work is here, with these dogs, with these warriors. I understand." which is why the legislation would allow you to remain here while consulting on the development of satellite facilities across the country. You'd be training the trainers, setting the standards, ensuring that what you've created here can be replicated everywhere. Every retired military working dog would have a place to go. Every veteran who needs a K9 partner would have access. General Graves stepped forward. The Marine Corps fully supports this initiative, as does the Department of Defense. You two have proven that this works. Now let's make sure every warrior human and K9 has access to what you've created. Ryan looked at Maya. She looked back. And in that moment, without words, they made the decision together. "We're in," Ryan said. "On one condition. Name it. Every facility that opens carries the same promise we made here. No dog gets left behind. No warrior gets abandoned. They all come home." Senator Morrison smiled. "Commander, that's not a condition. That's the mission statement." 3 months later, the legislation passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. The K9 Warriors program was born, funded at a level that ensured its success. Facilities began opening across the country in Georgia, Texas, Virginia, Colorado. Each one built on the model Ryan and Maya had created, each one staffed by veterans who understood the mission. And at the heart of each facility was the same promise, carved into stone at every entrance. No warrior left behind, no dog abandoned. All come home. The day the first satellite facility opened in Virginia, Ryan stood on the beach in Coronado with Titan at his side. The dog was 12 years old now, officially retired from active duty but still supervising the compound with a watchful eye. "We did it, buddy," Ryan said quietly. "We took what happened in that forest and turned it into something that will outlive us both." Titan leaned against his leg, a gesture of contentment and trust. Behind them, the compound buzzed with life. New trainees running obstacle courses, K9S learning commands, veterans finding healing in the companionship of dogs who understood trauma because they'd lived it too. Maya approached, Nova walking slowly beside her. The German Shepherd was 11, gray-muzzled and arthritic, but her eyes still held that fierce intelligence. "You ready?" Maya asked. "For what?" "The ceremony. They're dedicating the memorial today." Ryan had forgotten. They'd commissioned a bronze sculpture to be placed at the entrance of the compound, a seal in tactical gear kneeling in snow beside 2 K9S, all three watching over an injured warrior. It was based on that photograph from the rescue. The ceremony was simple but profound. Active duty SEALs and Marines stood at attention. Veterans and their K9 partners gathered in formation. The Admiral spoke about courage and sacrifice. The Senator spoke about the legacy being built, but it was Maya who delivered the words that mattered most. 6 years ago, a warrior answered a call in a blizzard, she said, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. He didn't have to. He was on leave. He was healing his own wounds. But when he heard someone in need, he didn't hesitate. He charged into a storm that should have killed him to save someone he'd never met. She paused, emotion thick in her throat. And because of that choice, this place exists. Because of that night, hundreds of dogs have found homes. Hundreds of veterans have found purpose. Thousands of warriors, human and canine, have been given a second chance at life. She turned to Ryan. Commander Keller taught us all a simple truth. The most important missions aren't the ones that get you medals. They're the ones that save souls. And sometimes the greatest courage isn't charging into enemy fire. It's choosing to care when everyone else has given up. The crowd erupted in applause. Ryan felt his throat tighten, his eyes burning. He'd spent his entire career avoiding recognition, deflecting praise, staying in the shadows where operators belonged. But this moment wasn't about him. It was about every warrior who'd walked through those gates broken and left whole. Every dog who'd been abandoned and found a home. Every bond formed between species that reminded humans what unconditional love looked like. As the sun set over Coronado that evening, Ryan and Maya sat on the beach with their 2 dogs. Titan and Nova lay between them, their bodies touching, Two warriors who'd fought together and earned their rest together. "You ever think about that night?" Maya asked. "About how different everything would be if you hadn't answered?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "Every day. And every day, I'm grateful I did." "Me too." They watched the waves roll in, the eternal rhythm of the ocean, and thought about all the lives that had been changed by a single decision made in a frozen forest. A decision to answer when someone called for help. A decision that proved love and loyalty weren't just emotions, they were forces that could change the world. Behind them, the compound lights glowed warm against the darkening sky. Inside, warriors slept peacefully beside their K9 partners. Tomorrow, the work would continue. More dogs would arrive, more veterans would find healing, more bonds would form that would last lifetimes. But tonight, in this moment, there was only peace. Titan's tail thumped once against the sand. Nova's eyes drifted closed. And two warriors who'd survived impossible odds sat together in comfortable silence, knowing they'd found something worth more than any medal or commendation. They'd found purpose. They'd found family. They'd found home. And they'd proven that sometimes the greatest victories aren't won on battlefields. They're won in the quiet moments when broken souls find each other and choose to heal together. The stars emerged overhead, brilliant and countless, and somewhere in those mountains far to the north, snow was falling on a forest where a miracle had happened. Where a seal and his dog had charged into a blizzard to save a Marine and her K9. Where warriors had met warriors, where bonds had been forged that would echo through generations. The storm had passed. The warriors had survived. And from that frozen night had grown something beautiful. Proof that even in the darkest moments, hope endures. That heroes still exist. That love, in all its forms, remains humanity's greatest weapon against despair. And that sometimes salvation comes not with thunder and lightning, but with four paws, a loyal heart, and the simple refusal to let someone die alone in the dark. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that courage still exists in this world. That loyalty isn't just a word, but a promise kept in the darkest hours. That warriors walk among us, some on 2 legs, some on 4, all united by a simple truth. When the innocent cry out, heroes answer. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Was it Titan's unwavering loyalty, Nova's desperate courage, or the moment 2 wounded warriors found redemption in protecting each other? We read every comment. God bless, and see you in the next story.